Joining me now is the Unified MMA lightweight champion who was supposed to defend his title at Unified MMA 33 on December 15th in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Unfortunately, the card was forced to be cancelled when the Edmonton, when the city council put a temporary ban on combat sports in Edmonton related to because of what happened with the Tim Hague situation. And the commission, Shane Campbell, UFC veteran, is here. Great, Shane. It's great to talk to you. It's been a while. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I mean, the last couple of weeks have been quite a roller coaster, but I'm doing well.
So let's dive right in. Let's talk about that roller coaster. How exactly, can you put into words how these past couple weeks have been like? You had been training for the fight, and then you get word that it might be canceled. But my understanding was that there was a chance the card could go on. Unfortunately, that ended up not being the case. But did you stay training and then hoping for the best? And then what exactly happened afterwards?
Well, exactly. That's kind of what made it more of a roller coaster because, the Friday previous to the fight, the word got out on through just, I think it was CTV News was, right on, the daily news saying that the moratorium's in place and all MMA is canceled. So I started getting messages from, everyone telling me that the fight was canceled before I really heard anything myself. And Unified was trying to press forward to make sure that this event could happen. We had already, the event had been planned for months in advance, so it'd be pretty wild for just in that short period to cancel it when they allowed the KO boxing to happen that night. And so I had kept training and was cutting weight and preparing for that fight, which I'd been preparing for months in advance, and it wasn't until Wednesday evening, 2 days before the Friday I'm supposed to fight, that it's for certain we're not going to be able to have this event happen, and that's that. So, 2 days before, the 15th, 2 evenings before is when I got the final word that the fights are off.
So what is your reaction on that 13th of December, just a week ago to this day, or to yesterday, I guess it would be? Are you frustrated, I would imagine, probably disappointed because you've been training for a little while for the fight, anticipating it, another title defense? What's going through your head when you find out that although you were told that maybe it could happen, and then 2 days before, nope, it's off. What went through your head? What is your first immediate reaction?
Just, super saddened, and this is a huge opportunity for me. Not only am I defending my title the second time, but I'm on a 3-fight win streak with 3 finishes. Going into my nenext fight would have maybe put me at four straight wins with 4 finishes on some great momentum. Already talking to some some big time promotions, and now without that win, you know what I mean, there was a lot of people waiting to hear the results of that, so it sets me back in that aspect, let alone the amount of time and energy I put into this camp itself and how much money I now lost, all with this event not happening. So I mean, I was still building everything up until that point, until only 2 days before. So with that being said, I wasn't, making money otherwise. I was banking on everything happening on December 15th to kind of get paid for the last few months of training consistently, right?
Well, and this is happening just before Christmas, too.
Yeah, and I've had over 100 fights, and this is the first time that I've ever had anything like this ever happen to me. So I'm kind of just so shocked and not really sure what to think or say or do. I mean, there's nothing I can do now other than move on and just start working on the next plan. But really saddened that the huge opportunity was ripped out of my hands with nothing that I could do about it.
can you at all elaborate? I know you talked a little bit, but like financially, how important was this fight? Because as you said, training camps cost money, and you weren't, you were sort of banking on this fight. Like, can you elaborate a little bit more on like how financially it? Because I just saw you started doing Uber. You became an Uber driver pretty recently.
Well, yeah, but no, I'm not doing that as a full-time job. It's just
Right.
a little side thing to facilitate my time as well.
Okay.
Right. And there's other aspects too now. When we get into taxes and all these other features, but I'm definitely not taking on Uber as a full-time career. It's just something in the side time to facilitate and maybe make some connections of some big-time sponsors, right? Or even some small-time sponsors. Either way, I'm always networking. But as for money, yeah, it costs money to put into the training camp, but also in the time that all the energy goes into training, there's that time is not spent making money otherwise too. So I'm not only not making money for 2 months, or making a lot less of money for 2 months, and that would be okay if that paycheck came in on the 15th, but it didn't. So
That's the interesting and risky part of MMA, is that you work for 2 months in the sense that you train for 2 months, but you only get paid on one day, and there still is a chance, even though you prepare and work for 2 months, that payday never comes, and that's exactly what happened. And do you look at that as like the big risk of MMA?
Well, 100%. That is what happened here, and I haven't. No, I've always looked at the big risk of MMA or fighting in general is that serious injury that's going to sideline me. Really looking at this as a financial thing. Like, I still have all my abilities. It's just, financially got set back here. But I'm a very capable person. I'm already working on my next projects, and I was actually really fortunate that. This last month I took on an acting career, and I filmed a movie in this time. So, with the little bit of Uber and now this acting gig, and I'm always working, doing personals with people and trying to pass on my knowledge that I can always make do.
I want to talk a little bit more about the acting stuff later on, but just one quick question about it. Was that planned before you knew about, I guess you would have taken that on during like mid-training camp?
Yeah, I took it on mid-training camp.
Was that hard to balance, just because most fighters, when they're in camp, they do nothing else, where you're filming a movie? Was that tough to balance even when you knew you were supposed to fight?
No, I like... Fighting doesn't really take as much energy in the sense of just constantly stressing about it. Like, I don't really stress about fighting at all or nothing like that. So now the movie, I wasn't on set every day for an extended period of time. I had 6 different days of being on set, so it was a lot easier for me to manage that. But yeah, I don't really have much problem there. I like to always experience new things and try to see if I can, manage in a different industry. It's kind of like a game to me.
So as a fighter, from a fighter's perspective, what are your thoughts on the Edmonton Commission?
Oh boy, I mean, it's always worked out for me until this one time, you know what I mean? As for the people that I dealt with when the events were happening, it was always pretty okay. Like, I had friends that worked the events, but I don't know who makes the actual rules and decisions and all that stuff, and it's not something that I really put my energy into. So I don't really know everyone that makes the decisions there to really kind of give an opinion about, but everyone that was always working the events I was at in Edmonton, was all pleasant people. As for the decision that made this moratorium go into place, I don't know. I'm still at a loss for words.
Do you understand it at all? Can you see where the city council is coming from at all, or is it all just?
Well, most definitely. I mean,
Okay.
when someone dies, we have to take a step back and reevaluate and reestablish safety rules and procedures. But the way that some people went about doing it, the city and the commission, obviously I'm not very pleased with.
As far as what the city council could have done, like what are just better options, like letting the events go on and still because the investigation was supposed to already happen and they keep delaying it. Like they could have handled this better. I would think, right?
100%, like giving us more than a 1 week's notice, pretty much, giving us a heads up. Or, I mean, seeing as this event was already in place for so long, Unified has, had no reputation of, anything bad happening. So, like, definitely let this one go through. Maybe give it some, have someone overlooking the event that's, higher up or however they do it. I'm not too sure. I just try to stick to fighting and training fighting, and I let politicians kind of do their job.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation just because, we had, the Edmonton Commission is responsible at the end of the day. Some people can argue this, but they, in a way, are partially responsible for Tim Hague's death. And so, as you said, I can see where the city council is coming from, but as a political group.
So if that were the case, then why wouldn't they, make a move as soon as the death happened?
Yeah.
Since that happened, there's been a lot of events going on from then till now. So, I mean, you can play devil's advocate on both sides, but the fact of the matter is, it's already in place, and this event was canceled, and it was very unfortunate.
I think the most annoying thing is that Unified has never done, as you said, they don't have a bad reputation. Far from it, they've never done anything wrong. This is on the commission, but the city council is not just hurting the commission; they're hurting everybody, promoters, fighters, and I feel like you guys don't deserve that, and I would imagine you agree fully.
Yeah, I most definitely do. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Moving forward, so you have been living in Edmonton, but I saw you were moving out to Kelowna?
Yeah, I have a plan of going nomad for the next 6 months, and then at that point I'm going to really, will bring me into about, the beginning of May, end of April kind of time frame, and I think at that point I'll decide where I'm going to post down for a little while longer. But yeah, I have some traveling on my plate here for the next little while. Kelowna will be my first stop.
Okay, and you will be going back to Toshido, of course, in Kelowna. This, I would imagine, has nothing to do with what's happening in Edmonton with the combat sports ban, though? Or is it related?
Well, I mean, it's... This ban has really turned me off. It's kind of ruined a lot for me up here in Edmonton. Some sponsors have backed out, and there's lack of interest in the city in general. It's really unfortunate. Now there's some big fight camps going on down in Kelowna, so that's a huge factor of me going there.
Fight camps, as in you're just talking in the gyms, or you're meeting Roy McDonald
getting
right?
Yeah, okay. Ready for his camp, and so is Sarah and Matt Dwyer. So
right.
The four of us all in fight ready mentalities is always a good time.
But as of now, you don't know if you'll say, as you said, by the end of April or so, you'll sort of make a decision. Could you still just stay in Edmonton, or is that off the table because of the fact?
No, the gym I was teaching at, we've had a falling out that I'm not very happy at, and I won't be returning there. So Edmonton doesn't have as big of a draws as it once did for me.
Well, that's one of the things I wanted to ask you about. I don't know how much you want to comment or how much you can say, but you were working at a UFC gym in Edmonton, right?
Correct.
Can you say what happened? Do you want to say what happened?
No, I can't exactly say everything, but like any gym that or any business that is not doing very well, it starts from the management, and very poor decision making from that point forward will create a lot of problems.
What were you doing there?
I was one of the head coaches.
Okay. And as you said, you just had a falling out, or?
Yeah, there was some things that happened at the gym that I absolutely and morally couldn't continue working there. So I removed myself from there, and I quit a pretty cushy job, getting paid pretty well, to not compromise my morals and principles.
Well, and I mean, definitely, as you said, sort of following your morals, that's great, but it has to be sort of not, I don't know how to say this, but like it has to be not frustrating, but just sort of, it has to hurt you because you just left a job that, as you said, was paying very well. You just had this fight canceled. You can't fight in Edmonton now. You're losing out on, as I said, now, like, is driving Uber. I know you said this is all Uber's on the side. Uber's just sort of meet new people, maybe pick up some new sponsors. It's almost like an investment in yourself. Is sort of how I think you
100%
explained it, right?
And that's how I see it. Yeah.
Is driving Uber at all related to having to leave the UFC gym?
No, I'd already been taking those steps to gain a new class of licensing, and then all the process that it takes to become an Uber driver doesn't just happen overnight. So I was already working on that anyway.
Okay. And as far as fighting again, now you had a super great deal with Unified. You had I think 3 fights this year with Unified. Of course, the one title defense, the one title, the one where you fought for the title and won the challenge, and then of course your debut back in March. Now it has to be obviously frustrating that now this is sort of off the table now because you can't fight. No one can fight in Edmonton. Now I know when we talked before the Jose Rodriguez fight, you had mentioned possibly doing Lion Fight, Muay Thai, or Glory Kickboxing, maybe even Bellator Kickboxing, moving into other combat sports in which you've competed before. Is there more incentive now to do that?
Well, actually, since then, I had gone out for a training camp. For part of this training camp leading up to this fight, I had made my way out to the coast, and I got a phenomenal training session in with Gabriel Varga leading up to his fight that he just crushed in Bellator Kickboxing. And so there was me, him, and John Johnsey, who's another phenomenal kickboxer, and that sparring session was, just so much fun and really sparked the fire under me for wanting to get back into kickboxing. So that's most definitely an option. Right now I'm definitely not, I would like to get into kickboxing again. It was so much fun sparring with them, and, I think it won't be long for me to get back to just where I was before I made the switch over to MMA.
But despite the Edmonton thing going on right now, is MMA still the main priority as far as combat sports?
No, and it never has been. My main priority is just improving myself as a person and keeping my body healthy. I've sustained quite a bit of injuries, and I almost consistently I'm taking on injuries so much that at least half my time is spent healing myself, whether that be getting PRPs or, spending more time resting and icing. I've even gone as far as learning about hyperbaric chambers and getting myself in those. So I feel like I'm getting older and my body's breaking down, but, I'm putting in that work to make sure I can still function and get in there to fight like I love to do.
Now, Unified, of course, is based in Edmonton. Have you heard from them as far as whether or not they'll try and put on a show outside of Edmonton with this ban going on?
I mean, it's all happened. It's so recent. It's still, like the barrels are still smoking. So I'm just
Sure.
going to let them kind of work their thing out here. There's, I'm sure there's lots going on behind the scenes, but I think everyone would like to kind of think about it for a minute, and I haven't been in contact with them on that front as for if they will be putting on a show anywhere else.
So with that in mind, it seems pretty fair that, I mean, I would imagine you want to get back into the MMA cage pretty soon anyways, sometime probably first quarter 2018. Is it pretty fair to say that you will have to look outside of Unified?
Yeah, I think so.
What about BFL with you going to Kelowna?
I'm not too sure. Taking on this acting gig, I think I might be able to land a couple more movies in 2018. But yeah, I think I might be fighting Fight Night on their next card.
Is
So
that the
that'll be
Lethbridge
early
one?
2018. Yes.
Okay, interesting. That's February 23rd, if I'm not... No, February 10th, right?
Yes, I think so.
Interesting. But I guess as far as the movies go, if you can do the movies and not have to fight and get paid, I mean, I would imagine you'd probably rather not having to get beat up.
Well, I don't really get beat up in many of my fights, so
Fair
that's
enough.
not a real problem.
But even taking five
Yeah.
punches in movies, unless you're, I don't know, a stuntman and something goes wrong, you're taking none.
Yeah, but I mean, for anyone
But
to
you
be
love
at the
fighting,
level
so-
that I'm at, there's that aspect, right? I mean, if I'm not getting paid to do it, I'm probably going to be in there sparring regardless.
Sure. It's hard to say to a fighter, oh, I mean, you can get paid and not get, fight or whatever, but fighters fight because they love fighting, so.
Correct.
As far as the acting, how did that come together? And so you filmed a movie this month in December, and how did that all come together? Like, was this your first acting gig?
Well, I mean, I've been on, I was on Infusion, so a reality show in Thailand, based out of like one kickboxer from 16 different countries. I think back like almost 10 years ago. And then I filmed another pilot for a reality show of preparing some people who have never fought before for a fight. But that pilot never got to make it to film. But yeah, this was the first real acting, kind of playing a different role, a different character.
How did it go?
And
Did
a
you
friend
like
of mine had I loved it. It was super fun, exciting. Everyone on the crew was great to work with. The main director was Sean Donnelly, who owns LFC. So that's pretty fun and exciting. We were able to talk lots about MMA and LFC itself, and it was super fun.
Awesome. And you said you will have some other stuff potentially coming up in early 2018?
Yeah, I think so. I got a lot of positive feedback, and it's something I want to pursue. So I think here in early 2018, you may hear some news of a next movie.
Awesome, that's great. I know, I mean, I don't have first-hand experience, of course, but I would imagine, I mean, it's tough to sort of make it big in acting. Not everybody does it. Do you look at this as just sort of something you're doing for fun, get a bill here and there, or could you take it to the next level and make it into, even if you're not like in Hollywood's #1 star, like, I mean, could you make a decent living off of it?
Well, who knows? I mean, it only takes one real good role, I guess. I mean,
so, yeah.
It was super fun. I'm definitely open to you know what I mean, looking at whatever comes my way. There would be, whether it's fighting or acting, wherever the biggest paycheck comes in is something I would keep my eyes open for, though.
Sure, fair enough. Well, is there anything else you want to touch on? Is there anything else, as far as, speaking sort of what's on your mind as far as the Edmonton Commission goes, obviously the city council's decision to not let any combat sports events go on for the next year, I believe, leaving the UFC Gym, training at Toshido. Anything else we touched on that you feel I didn't ask you about, or you want to get off your chest? Anything else?
No, there was a lot there. I'd like to say Merry Christmas to everyone, and happy training.
Yeah, I do got to ask you real quick before I let you go. What are your Christmas plans? I imagine just sort of meet up with the family and enjoy Christmas dinner. And unfortunately, you won't be 10 days or so removed from a fight, but
yeah, I don't know. Maybe some sparring with Rory would be a pretty awesome Christmas present.
Awesome. Well, Shane, thank you very much for the time. It's great catching up. As I said, it had been a while. Before I let you go, let my audience know where they can find you on social media. And if there's anybody you'd like to thank or give a shout out to, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I like Shane Campbell on most social media, and Shaolin Style Fighting, or Shaolin Style MMA on Twitter. And a big shout out to Wizard Lake Marines for holding down their spot and sponsoring me on my next fight coming up here. So thanks a lot, guys, and Merry Christmas, everyone.